It started just with marijuana in the beginning, and then that just escalated to whatever I could get my hands on. So I started with opiates, started doing those type of things, and then I had a mindset that I would just do at least everything one time. And so I went on a full-blown rebellion. I followed God up until that point, and when I tried drugs, I just said, God, I'm gonna put you over here for a minute, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna go my way. I had a wreck when I was drinking and driving. Ultimately, that led me in the hospital to where I broke almost every major bone on the right side of my body and was even left in a wheelchair for a long time. I went from using pain pills and using drugs as a fun thing, but then when I had my wreck, I had pain, so I really had to use them for pain. But then I let the addiction come back and I began to abuse them again. So as my mom would distribute them to me, I would just hold them back so I would have enough to get high on. So every time I get a paycheck, I would spend it on pills, constantly stole. I would steal from my mom. I would steal random $20 of cash. I burned every bridges with friends. I didn't really care about them. I was very manipulative. I didn't care about myself, so I couldn't care about anybody else. So believing in God and knowing that He can save me and deliver me has changed my life drastically. Started out working with small children, and that gave me a hope to know what I wanted to do. I wanted to help as many children as possible, not to be in the circumstance that I was in. So putting myself around people that are encouraging in my life is very important for me, and that's how I've ultimately stayed on track.
She worked as a nurse. Her entrance into the world of narcotics or opioids was, I don't want to say by mistake, but I think she kind of slipped into it. She was going to her 10-year class reunion. She wanted to look nice, and at that time there was some kind of diet pill that you could get on over the counter. She was able to get a prescription for those, and then she took off the weight. Well, and this was over a period of about 3 months. And then she complained about how she couldn't get the jitters to stop. So she goes back to the doctor and gets something that kind of, helps with her nerves and things like that. And that's kind of where it started. When you work in the nursing field, you know a lot of doctors. Well, I've got this wrong, or I need help, I'm having trouble sleeping, I've got a backache or whatever. So she never had a problem getting them. She had gotten on as a flight nurse, and she had to be real careful with drug screening. But as long as she had a prescription, she was able to get by with the drugs that were in her system when she was tested. And I think that's a big misconception of people too. Oh, if I have a prescription for it, there is nothing wrong with it. A doctor gave this to me. Well, then she met a doctor and she got married. And so with the marriage came kids, and she gained a lot of weight, and she just kind of drove off the path of being a nurse anymore, and depression set in. I decided that I wasn't going to keep it a secret anymore. And I started talking about it with people. And you know how small towns are? People were already talking about it. They just weren't talking about it with us. My parents started to get involved. My parents are older. It was breaking their hearts. It was, what can we do? And we even tried. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, well, I think I'm going to grow up and be a drug addict. But it turned from an issue of her addiction to, I'm going to protect these kids.
Negative K, nothing further,
One night she got arrested, and I went out and got the kids. She had them in the car with her, and I went and got the kids, and they were both screaming, and I had one on each arm, and I said, she loves you, but you're coming with me. That person that I had grown up with and shared everything with and told all of our secrets to, I didn't even know this person anymore. She had agreed to go to rehab in Tennessee on the condition that the doctor that put her in would give her more narcotics to get her ready to go. So by the time they got her down there, within an hour of arriving, she's calling and she's standing outside, sitting on the bench waiting on somebody to get her. She checked herself out. Her family broke up, moved out, and we had cut her off, and she left a note And she'd gone to a doctor over in Tennessee and got some pills and, left a note, and my brother-in-law found her on a Saturday morning. She had all of the tools and resources that someone could have that needed them, because she came from a very well-to-do family. Her husband, is a doctor. She had 2 beautiful kids, a beautiful home, and she couldn't see any of that. And I think maybe the depression was wound up in that, and I think a lot of people think that people can stop just anytime they want, but it just wasn't. There was just something about this for her that it was bigger than she was. My dad took it really, really hard, and within 6 months, he had a massive heart attack and he passed away. I think the main thing that I would go back and do differently is I wouldn't hide it. I would, from the very beginning, I would say, this is a problem and you're going to deal with it, and I'm going to be on your coattails until you deal with it. And she was never going to be that nurse again that was so vibrant and so good at her job and so loving, and to turn from that to just a raging addict was, sometimes it's still more than I can wrap my mind around.
I'm an emergency physician, and I work primarily at Black River Medical Center and also Poplar Bluff Regional Medical Center. Pain is the number one thing we see in the emergency department. A lot of it's back pain, a lot of it's abdominal pain, and there are some objective tests we can do to figure out what it is, but a lot of times we can't figure out what's causing the pain, and then we have to decide how to treat it. If you look at the opioid epidemic, it started somewhere around the year 2000, back when the Joint Commission, which helps regulate hospitals and accredit them, the medical boards of several states, or all states, and also multiple other government agencies decided that they were going to punish doctors if they didn't treat pain adequately. And so starting at that time, doctors then started kind of by force having to do more opioid prescriptions. Historically, for the last 10 or 15 years, we've done more of the opioids for the acute and chronic pain. Now there's a nationwide trend to stop doing that. We're starting to decrease the amount of opioids that are prescribed through the emergency department, through private physicians' offices, and I think we're going back to the modalities that should have been used years ago and have been used in the past. And also there's a lot of different pain medicines that are non-addictive and non-narcotic that also work very well for pain. In Missouri, the opioid epidemic has been increasing over several years, but last year we finally went down about 1.2% in the amount of overdoses in Missouri. So we're starting to trend the other way. Unfortunately, the Northeast and Southeast, it's increasing considerably.